Good afternoon. My name is Eun-soo Lee, and I'm right now at the UNESCO-UNITWIN Symposium. And actually, my background, it's real nature. Thank you very much for inviting me to this wonderful event. So I will be giving the second presentation of session 1. And the moderator is Dr. Ki-won-hong. Yes, hello. Today, we will be talking about arts education. It's an honor for me to serve as a moderator at this important event. This session will be touching upon related topics, and we will especially look at arts education in the field. We'll be hearing the stories from practitioners, and based on what they have to say, I do believe that we will be able to perhaps further advance the arts education in the field. We have 5 people who will be giving presentations. They will be introducing what kind of roles they play in their agencies or organizations, and the first speaker is actually Director Yung Sung Jung. Let me briefly introduce him to you. He currently works at the National Theatre Company of Korea, and he is involved in activities related to what the theaters can do to protect and preserve the environment. I think that is a hot topic at the National Theatre Company these days. I think he will be touching upon that later. The title of his presentation is "A Theater is a Small Earth." I will hand over the microphone to Director Jung.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well, and that was a great introduction. I think I couldn't have done it better myself. Can you see my slides? Yes, I believe so. Allow me to begin. Good afternoon. It is indeed a great pleasure to meet you, although we are meeting online. At the UNITWIN Symposium, I will be presenting under the topic of "The Theater is a Small Earth." I'm the PR team manager for the National Theater, and I feel a bit nervous because I'm the first presenter for this session. I would like to take this opportunity to talk about response to climate change by arts and culture groups. And from that aspect, I would like to introduce some practical measures for execution. The presentation that I have prepared is in black and white, which only takes up 1/4 of the color presentation's energy. So I try to reduce my carbon footprint. It is a small way to help us realize how we can help in reducing the carbon footprint. And I believe that there will be color presentations conducted by other presenters after myself. I mentioned that I work with the National Theatre, and we have 3 theaters under our name. Although we have COVID-19, we have strict disease management, and we are meeting our audience in these theaters. Theaters are space where artists meet the audience. Every night, we put on a performance, and after the performance, nothing is left. And this process of birth and disappearance continues every single day. We need to focus on the fact that much resource is invested for just a short amount of time and is lost after that. And so, reducing the carbon footprint of theater, which is a small earth, is very important. This small earth, called theaters, continues the cycle of creation and disappearance, and we try to make sure that what we do is sustainable. As you're well aware, sustainability is a new challenge for arts and culture groups. When we continue to think about the sustainability of organizations, we believe that research has been ongoing for a very long time. I believe that such dialogue is very important for us to raise awareness in climate crisis. Organization ecology recognizes that the survival and social changes of organizations depends on natural selection. Resource-dependent theory says that the ability to utilize external resources is the ability of the organization, and we have selective and strategic choice to enhance efficiency. The shareholder theory shows that the legitimacy of organization is the stakeholders that impact the goals and action of organizations. And the social capital theory that believes that the relationship between stakeholders is based on capital. It emphasizes the long-term format of the accumulated social capital. Against the backdrop of various theoretical perspectives, countries around the world have researched these theories in order to understand climate change from the perspective of culture and art. For this symposium, I am sure that many people are participating with examples from around the world. I would like to share a few of those myself. Well, first of all, the UK, which is very active in responding to climate change, has the non-profit organization called Julie's Bicycle. They have quite a few examples under their belt. Julie's Bicycle works with 7 areas, including theater, music, film, orchestra, visual art, touring, and outdoor art. And according to the different art forms, they are working on coming up with practical measures to reduce energy use and to reduce carbon footprint. The National Theatre of the UK has announced their recognition for the climate crisis, and they are working to reduce carbon emissions. Matthew Bourne's New Adventures Company, well known for Swan Lake, also is working on reducing carbon footprint during their tours, not only in the UK, but other countries around the world, including Canada and Australia, are looking for solutions to make sure that we artistically try to solve the climate crisis. The National Theatre of Korea was the first artistic group created in Korea in 1950. In 2010, the National Theatre became a foundation, and now we are able to make our own decisions to conduct artistic activities. We have 3 theaters. We have the Myeongdong Theater that was used from the 1970s. And we also have the Baekseongi Jangminho Theater, which is named after 2 prominent members of the theater. And we also have a small theater called Pan for various performances. As you're well aware, we create theater, and so in relations to the value chain of performance production, I would like to think about climate change. This value chain has 4 different stages. First, we have research that can lead to planning of new opportunities. Second, we have performing that actually is presenting the plans on the stage. And we also have marketing, communicating the value of the performance to the audience, and the theater itself that presents the performance to the audience. In planning, we need to have leadership for climate crisis. When we produce our pieces, we need to think about climate change, and we also need to think about some contemporary buzzwords. We need to think about what kind of crisis we should be aware of in producing our pieces. From the production's perspective, we need to make improvements on stage props and inefficient lighting that is wasteful. In terms of marketing, we have to think about the excessive use of print, such as posters and leaflets. And within the theater itself, we also have to think about how we're going to reduce the use of disposable products such as tickets or envelopes. As I have mentioned before, in order to find solutions for various climate crisis-related issues, our theater is making small efforts with more to come. And we can think about this from the perspective of the value chain. From the planning perspective, for the first time as a theater, we actually started our slogan of climate action. And within the ethical code of our theater, we added a clause on respect for life and environmental protection. In terms of production, especially for the youth theater, we have educational perspectives emphasizing climate change. Such efforts are not only being made in just our theaters, but we are also introducing these ideas to our tours as well. In the past, stage props were not reused, but now we are working with the drama circle to reuse stage props. The lighting that is used at theaters is very energy intensive, and we are transforming them into LED lights so that we can reduce our carbon footprint. In terms of marketing, we have stopped producing posters and we have switched to the template format. And we are strengthening the online designs that we are currently using. The program books that were in the form of booklets are now online programs so that we can reduce the waste of paper through printing program books. And we have stopped subscribing to paper newspapers, and we are trying to expand the sharing of information using online platforms. A lot of resources are used for theaters. For example, paper tickets, which are used in immense amounts, are now online tickets. The packaging for the products sold in the art shops are using biodegradable packaging currently. And in order to communicate with our audience, we are preparing upcycled souvenirs. These souvenirs have not been produced by us, but this actually is an upcycling of the aircrafts that were used by Korean Air. So I have introduced some theories related to climate change, as well as examples from abroad and Korea's national theater. As you're well aware, we meet our audience in our theaters every night, which is a small earth. And the everyday lives of our theaters are being challenged by climate crisis. And so we need to act now. And we believe that we need to change today. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much. Mr. Jung Yong-sung talked about his experience at the National Theater, and the National Theater is a public organization, and so he is speaking from that perspective. And we now need to think about how to collaborate on this front through the private sector. Well, currently I am teaching at the Korea National University of Art, and our students, they build their stages and they dismantle it after their performance. And In that process, I think we need to think about reducing carbon footprint. And when they learn to reduce their carbon footprint as a student, then they will continue this as they build their careers outside of the school. And I believe that the private sector and the public sector should come together to come up with standards and limitations that we should apply. I hope that we can develop further together.
The second topic, well, we're now living in an age of a pandemic, and we are unable to gain access to certain venues at such a time. The environment has become a very important keyword, and various fields are working with environment-related issues. So now we're going to look at what the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art in Korea has been doing. Our second presenter is Assistant Director Eun-soo Lee at the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art, MMCA. I think that at the end of 2019, I think that was when the pandemic began, we started to engage in various endeavors to deal with the environmental issue. And we're going to listen to what some of those activities were in detail. She actually is here at the venue of the symposium, so let us meet her there. Yes, my name is Eun-soo Lee, and right now I'm at the venue of the symposium. I feel like I'm a reporter for a broadcasting company. I am sitting in front of beautiful scenery. When looking through a screen, it looks like it's not real. It's digital imagery, but actually it's real nature. Now, today I am going to talk about how arts and contents have changed during the age of the pandemic. And I'm going to talk about what kind of agenda our museum has implemented to deal with the issue of climate change. So our MMCA actually has 4 branches. You probably know this well, but in Samcheong-dong, located in Seoul, we have the Seoul branch, and then we have the Gwacheon branch, the Deoksu Palace branch, and the Cheongju branch. They all have different characteristics, and we have a different strategy for each branch. So we implement different strategies for each branch based on the branch's characteristic. So I think that this is an old version of the presentation that I prepared, but nevertheless, let me continue. So as the world faces the COVID-19 pandemic, we have been focusing on providing educational contents that people can enjoy within their homes, and we have received good evaluations for what we've been doing. We have set new directions for our exhibitions, especially we have been focusing on healing, coexistence, and also we have been trying to promote social communication because the pandemic has led to many social challenges and also difficulties for individuals as well. And so one of the exhibitions that we opened, actually it opened last week, was the Disaster in Healing exhibition. And also we have been focusing on ecological arts, Time of the Earth, for example. We have been focusing on art for coexistence and peace. So we have been actually taking interest in all of the social issues that exist within the Korean society. So I think I mentioned this right now, but this is an exhibition titled Disaster and Healing. And this is a themed exhibition that deals with timely themes and topics from a contemporary perspective in terms of our society and art history. The world is hit with a pandemic, and at such a time, the pandemic has been impacting individuals' lives and social lives as well. So we have been introducing work that deals with such topics. And also, we have been thinking about related philosophical topics to think about this transitional phase and also relative themes. This pan-global pandemic is affecting us today. And right now, there is limitation of movement at such a time. However, nevertheless, we have been trying to promote exchanges through these types of exhibitions, which can be enjoyed online, for example. And if you come to the lobby, actually, there is a work by artist Seo Seung-mok Pavilion. And if you look at this work, it's pursuing carbon neutrality. It has recycled materials, and also the walls that are used for exhibiting the work. We have recycled previous walls that we had used for other exhibitions as well. The pandemic has been something that we have experienced difficulty in predicting. It has impacted our society very broadly, but we do believe that art can help us heal in this time of difficulty. This exhibition actually has 5 topics, and it looks at the symptoms and also the expansion and the spread of the pandemic. This presentation actually is an older version, unfortunately. But nevertheless, let me continue. So, aside from this, we have been focusing on peace art and ecological art as well. For example, we have an outdoor project at the Deoksu-gung branch and also at the Hwacheon branch. For example, ecological arts Time of the Earth. This is also an exhibition that deals with a very timely topic. And also, Peace Art On examines the contemporary meaning of the peaceful narrative and coexistence of the art museum through the collection of MMCA and new works specific to places. So we are trying to utilize more outdoor spaces, and we have been installing work more outside. Actually, we have prepared about 9 projects in Hwacheon, Seoul, Deoksu Palace, and Cheongju branches. And last week, we opened up the exhibition titled Disaster and Healing. We have 9 outdoor exhibitions that will continue. And also we have a project that is related to carbon neutral art. 2050 carbon neutral goal, that is something quite essential for our society. It's related to the future of whole humanity. Climate change is a very grim challenge for all of us, and that's why we have to focus on carbon neutrality. We have to move away from using the carbon resources or fossil fuel. And so we do believe that this related transition is very important. It's not just about changing the energy resources that we utilize, but we have to think about all of the social institutions that we have in relation to the energy that we use. So this approach towards carbon neutral or position actually is related to various aspects and elements within our society. And it's not just about the environment, but it's also linked with the economy as well. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic and the virus, it's not only a health issue. It's not just quarantine-related issue, but it's related to many different elements of our lives. And likewise, when we think about carbon neutrality, we have to think about many different elements. And that's what we've been doing at our museum. So we have been pursuing many different different strategies for environment-friendly projects. For example, we have been thinking about how we can recycle the resources and resource circulation as well. And what we can do after an exhibition is over is something that we've been thinking about as well. Also, the technicians, the environmental specialists, and scientists, we have been working with many different specialists in many different fields. We have been experimenting ways to apply environmental practices in the art field. And also, we have been trying to communicate with our viewers and speculators in outdoor areas so that we can help people enjoy culture more in this age of the pandemic. That's one of our agendas. So there is the outdoor areas outside of the art museums, and we have been trying to fortify our carbon neutral related contents in these outdoor areas. For example, we have been reflecting seasonal climate issues such as fine dust, radiant heat, and eco-friendly heating. So we have more exhibitions that we have been thinking about. And also, we have been thinking and supporting actually artists that have been focusing on this topic of carbon neutrality. Also, we have been hosting conferences. Actually, online conferences will be held related to how carbon neutrality can be implemented in the art world. And we have been developing audience participatory programs to share environmental issues such as workshops and performances and derive synergy effects with installation projects and conferences throughout the year. Also, every time we hold an exhibition within a museum, as you know, we have to use a lot of resources. For example, we have to build up walls. So we have been thinking about how we can recycle materials that museums have been using within this country. So we have been trying to create a database to identify what kind of display materials have been used and can be recycled. We continue to think about what we can do in the art field. For example, we no longer print out tickets. What we do is we have people reserve online and we provide a digital image of a QR code. So people can just scan their QR codes to enter the museum. And also the pamphlets, for example, we recollect used pamphlets so that they can be upcycled. These are some of the approaches that we have been working on. Now, like I mentioned before, we have been working on a number of carbon neutral art projects. And we also have some plans for upcoming events such as international conferences and education programs. We are planning for online workshops. For example, we have been working on building databases working with museums throughout the country. And also, we have been focusing our attention on overseas projects for carbon neutral approaches. I'm sure that a lot of you have already heard about High Five of David Benjamin. For example, the spectators are provided with water and a resting place. For example, and this actually received the MoMA PSA1 Young Architect Program Award. And we took reference of this work of art. And what you see here is the smog pre-tower by Dean Rousseau Hardy. And it absorbs the fine dust in the air in order to reduce the dust in the air to promote clean air. So we have been working on how we can tackle the issue of the climate crisis and environmental issues as well, utilizing this public place, the museum. And also, we have been trying to collaborate with experts outside of the art field so that we can do more. And expand our work to boundaries outside of the art sector. We have been actually promoting the use of outdoor areas so that we can better communicate with our visitors in this age of the pandemic. Thank you very much for your attention. Yes, thank you very much. We have heard from Eun-Soo Lee, and I think what's most important for us during the session is the panel discussion. And we will be able to talk about the various topics that have come up during the presentations and talk about them more in detail and also come up with more interesting ideas during the panel discussion.
소중한 시간이라고 생각이 됩니다. 그런 차원에서 시간을
So, having said that, thank you very much for keeping your time. Let's go on to the next presentation.
Next, we will talk about local projects. The two previous speakers spoke from the perspective of national organizations, and so it was from a perspective of a public agency. And we heard about what they are doing on a larger scale. Now we would like to take a look at some local examples. The first of which will be by curator Suan Kim, who will talk to us about her project in Seongbuk. She will talk about the connection between art as well as the stakeholders. We have with us from the Seongbuk Museum of Art curator Kim So-wan. She will talk to us about the Seongbuk Art Sunanno project. Ms. Kim? Maybe we need to unmute your microphone. Could you make sure that you have unmuted your microphone? Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon. As I've been introduced, I am Kim So-wan, and I would like to speak under the title of Proactive Crisis Response by Establishing a Sustainable Art Ecosystem, focusing on the case of Seongbuk Art Sunanno project. Art Sunanno is the Korean expression for art beltway. The art circle was impacted greatly by the pandemic, and so we went through difficulties such as cancellation of events and the cut of budgets. And this actually calls us to conduct new experiments, new approaches, and new executions. And we need to be able to maintain consistency even amongst changes in the environment. And we need to research how we can maintain our consistency. And we believe that this is preemptively preparing for crises. And so therefore, creating an art ecosystem is essential, and one example is our Seongbuk project. Sustainable art ecosystem goes beyond art welfare. It's not about just our everyday livelihood, but it is also about enabling artists to express themselves by creating a platform for expression. At the same time, we need to make sure that space and location is not limited. And that is the type of cultural protection that we need. How are we able to execute a sustainable art ecosystem through the Art Sunanno project. There are many aspects of art ecosystem: the players, network, contact point, space, systems that enable this, as well as the contents that fill the ecosystem. When all of these elements are in place, we can have a healthy ecosystem that is sustainable. Well, the Art Sunanno started with the local artists as well as the Seongbuk Museum of Art. This is based on private-public partnership. We call this art governance. The members who have experienced art governance is leading the Art Sunanno project. We also need to make sure that we have a sustainable art ecosystem that is created through the project. Art Sunanno is a multifaceted and multilateral system for artists. This project is based on art governance, as I mentioned before. The Seongbuk Museum of Art is a local agency dedicated for art, and we play the bridge as a bridge to connect the public and the private sector. In 2018, as you can see, we have been awarded for our activities because we are able to continue with art governance. And we believe that ever since our foundation was created, we have had this big picture, and we have been able to continue to cooperate. And by having an art governance space, we are able to continue to create various space for arts in Miari and Mindo and theaters, as well as the Cheonjansan space. These are areas that are now turned into assets for art in our local area. This is all a part of art governance, and this shows the direction of our foundation, and it also shows what results we are achieving through private-public partnership. Seongbuk District is one of the 25 districts in Seoul, and it has the second largest population of artists. The Wolgok-Seok관 area located in Seongbuk has a high population of artists, but we do not have the infrastructure for art activities. So from 2019, we went through roundtables to come up with a common goal, and from 2020, we have established 5 small groups to conduct the Seongbuk Art Sunanno project. Here you can see a scene from our area. So it's a picture of what our area looks like. It's under the elevated road that goes through our area. This area has not been developed for a very long time. And this area here is the Seseokwan market, and this is what it looks like inside the market. They actually received a D level in their safety rating. And so it's a very dangerous situation, but because of conflict of interest, this area is not being redeveloped. This area is located between 2 subway stations, and because there is a large elevated road going through this area, and because this area is targeted for redevelopment, this area is quite outdated, but at the same time, this area has 2 art schools within the area. So we do have various spaces that we have created for art in this area. The first area is the Woljangsuk and Friends. We also have the Seokwan Art Space, and we also have a library and various community centers. The identity of Art Sunanno is based on the large elevated road that goes through this area. We wish to create a neighborhood that enables the artists to express themselves. So we started with the basic plan in 2019, and last year and this year and the next year, we have a 3-year plan for executing our plan. And in order for the project to continue even after next year, we are in the process of coming up with a mechanism. So that is the mid to long-term plan. Especially, we have a consultative body, including the local community, so that we can continue to make new attempts based on art governance. And we are reaping various results from these efforts. The goal of the Art Sunanno project is to come up with agreements through the consultative body. We also wish to have a platform for art creation. We also wish to have a way to come up with various public opinion. We also wish to have experimental projects that are executed in the area and space to share with the artists. So this is the platform for discussions. In order to have the platform for art activities, we have started with the online-offline content going hand in hand, and the online magazine is currently available. We also wish to create a stable platform for dialogue by creating a sufficient space. The space includes existing space as well as space that we can share with the private sector, and we also want to create new space that is available. We also need to come up with business models that can enable the artists to continue to live off of their art within this ecosystem. And that will make the ecosystem sustainable. And this is the part that we need more ideas for. And so therefore, art-related platform, creating assets, and education will come together to enable the facilitation of art economy. Let me go back to the Art Sunanno. Here you can see that we have 5 different small groups. First, we have a study group, and we also have a festival called Neighborhood Salons. We also have open research labs. We also have a magic lamp, which is for spatial experimentation. And we also have surveys for the local community to use for our research. Here you can see experimental space. We invite artists and activists to join this space. Sometimes we have exhibitions, sometimes we have discussions. So this is empty space that is up for experiments. And it is open, so various users and various contents can fill this space. And this is what the space looks like. The artists operate this area, so it could be space for artwork, and it could be space that is just enjoyed, or it could be space for shopping as well. So this is what our exhibition looked like, and we have conducted various programs in this space. Here you can see our lounge. And in the past, this was a shop that sold rice, and that's why we call it the Rice Lounge. Of course, it looks a bit different now because we have space to eat, space for conferences, and space for creation as well. So I showed that there is an elevated road going through this neighborhood, and we wanted to make sure that we have space that shows collectively what the artist in this neighborhood is doing. Next, let's talk about the Neighborhood Salon Festival. Usually, festivals are platforms where the audience can meet artwork. And so we wanted to have a festival that shows the art scene of 월곡 and 석관 so that we can create a network of local artists. And that is why we are hosting a series of festivals called neighborhood salons. When we first tried to open this festival, we were greatly impacted by COVID-19. And so we actually utilized this opportunity to discuss what art should look like in order to survive in this era. There are 4 aspects of salon. First is for discussions called we salon. We also have experiment and planning. Just like you saw in our experiment of space, we also have exhibitions as well as various ideas that can be expressed. Space, times, neighborhood salons provide programs for networking, and we also have the collection of writing. On the left, you can see that because the Changidong area is area that is targeted for redevelopment, we have quite a bit of protest. So artists had actually collected banners and created artwork out of the banners, as you can see on the left. And on the right, this artwork has been created by boxes that have been discarded. Here you can see that an artist is conducting performance art by pulling a wagon. Could you complete your presentation within the next 2 minutes? This is a piece that is responding to the pandemic itself. And Professor Park Shin-lee talked about the definition of art ecosystems. And we have had a total of 5 study sessions. Here you can see the Open Research Lab researching the local area. Well, there were various researchers researching this area, and now they are gathered under this roof of Open Research Lab so that they can share their research results with one another. And so there are 4 results that I am sharing with you. Professor Seojak joined us for this. And we also have an online magazine, and we are able to use this online platform to showcase what we are doing, and we can share our results and achievements. We also include columns and written work by artists. So let's take a look at some long-term issues. Sustainable art ecosystem may feel quite abstract, and so we need to make sure that this goal becomes tangible, and that is what we achieve through our project. Many of the projects are ad hoc projects, but now we have a 3-year plan as well as a mid to long-term plan following the 3-year plan. And so we are able to approach these issues very systematically. And so we are able to become the actual players for art ecosystems as a more mature form of art governance. This project is ongoing, and so we do have some tasks that remain, and these tasks cannot be solved overnight. We need to find strategies for the participation of those who are marginalized. We also need to strengthen the partnership between the private sector and the space that we have available. We also need to make sure that through public-private partnership, we need to become self-sufficient. And so what kind of responsibilities will we take on? We need to think about this. For sustainable growth and development, how are we going to execute our midterm plan? That is a task at hand. Thank you very much for your attention.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very
성북문화재단은
much. The Seongbuk Museum of Art
실천 이
is
두 가지
very
단어를
detailed in their execution.
실천의 차원에서
So from the executional perspective, we will go on to the next presentation.
From Gyeongsang University, we have with us Professor Soo-yeon Kim from the School of Theatre and Film Art. She will be giving a presentation on the topic of suspicious dining table. So I'm sure this will be very interesting. Let us invite Professor Kim. Yes, hello. My name is Soo-yeon Kim. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Theatre and Film Art at Gyeongsang University. Today, I will introduce an environment-related TIE program. I made a presentation in English because the official language of this conference is English. So I heard later that I can speak in Korean. So although the presentation material is in English, I will speak in Korean. As an expert in theater education, I wanted to think about how theater can be utilized to give more positive influence to people. And I created a project around that. So I utilized the TIE format. I will talk about the background of the TIE program that I developed. And I will focus more in detail about the suspicious table program. And based on the data collected, I will think about the power of drama and theater, or the impact of drama and theater. And also I'll talk about TIE online. I'll give you my experience, share my experience. And last but not least, I will talk about art education and our communities. So that will be the last part of my presentation. The TIE project that I'm involved in right now is a project that deals with environmental issues. But aside from this, the suspicious dinner tema, I also have a human rights related TIE program that I'm developing, and also one related to cyberbullying. I have been developing these TIE programs, and the reason that I've been doing that is something that I would like to explain. And what kind of issues or questions do I deal with through the TIE program? Let me touch upon these. Well, first of all, I wanted to provide an opportunity to our students to think more proactively, think about themselves and the related issues. And usually the TIE programs are carried out in an offline environment, but I have been trying out these programs in an online environment. I wondered whether these online TIE programs can be effective. So YouTuber Nyono, which deals with cyberbullying, is something that we've tried online, and I will share my experience related to this program because we're thinking about how we can more effectively utilize online TIE programs. And also, how does art education work for positive changes within our community? That's another research question that I have been dealing with. Now, I don't think I need to further explain this slide. The polar bears are losing their habitats. Also, the Sahara Desert was hit with snow, and these extreme weather patterns are becoming more frequent. Fish and birds are dying because of the waste thrown away by human beings. And at such a time, what can we do? Well, I think that this is actually a quite simple question. We have to act, we have to educate. And that was the starting point of the program, the suspicious dining table. Education, well, education is about having people act out what they're thinking. So we need to pull out what people have in their minds and have them act them out. I think that's important for our future generation, and that's what we've tried to incorporate in our program. So what is TIE? Now, in drama and theater education, if you have background in this field, you probably know well what TIE is. But before I dive into the TIE program, let me just briefly introduce to you what TIE is. It's an acronym for Theater in Education. It was first introduced in England in the 1960s and then spread to many countries around the world. It's a form of theater education program. So it doesn't have a set framework or format, but usually there's the performance part and then there's the drama workshop part. Through the performance part, participating students or the participant students have a chance to engage in and watch the play or the theater. And then during the drama workshop, students can come up with creative solutions for challenges that they're confronted with. So usually a performance is utilized to attract the attention of the participants, and also within this situation that is displayed before their eyes, people can think about what they can do, and they can share their opinions about what could be a solution to a certain issue. So that is what the participants can think about in the drama workshop part. The role of the actor and the teacher, what we call the role actor-teacher. And during the performance part, the hat put on is the actor. And then during the drama workshop part, the teacher's hat is put on. And I worked with the members of our Gyeongsang University community. And I did not simply just give orders or ask them to do something and give them instructions, but the people that I worked with actually were my colleagues. They shared their opinions and helped me develop the program. And we really wanted to capture the true attention and the interest of the students. So we have the greeting part in the beginning, and then there's the performance part 1 and 2, and then there's the activity part 2. We actually visited elementary schools, one in Ulsan and another in Chilgo, to carry out this program. And even now, when we receive a request from a school, we go and we carry out this program. Now, let me give you more detail about this program. This is the first part, the greeting program, and one person has to take on many roles. So the roles that they take on is introduced here, and also the basic manners and etiquettes when the students are watching the play is introduced. And then here there are two characters, Bo-hyung and Ji-eun, and they greet the speculators, and then the teacher comes and says that they're going on a field trip, and the teacher says that you should not bring disposable items when preparing lunch boxes, and then they all go home. That's the first scene. And then the next scene, along with music, it changes to Bo-young's house. So usually you're accustomed to various props used during a play or costumes, but we don't use them. We make this very simple. We go to the classrooms and we utilize whatever we can find and use as props in the classroom. So we only utilize the most basic elements of a theater to do the performance. That's how the program is carried out. And so next, this is the morning of the field trip. And Boyoung was not able to tell her mother that disposable items are not allowed. So Boyoung's mother put in disposable goods in her lunchbox, and Boyoung takes the lunchbox to the field trip. So Jiun and Boyoung, you can see that they're sitting along with the speculators there. They're watching the performance along with them. And then the teacher comes on stage. And then there is an OX quiz that the teacher conducts. So this is the activity part. It's like a true or false quiz, and students can actually enjoy this very well because it's a very fun, interesting game activity.
이렇게 해서 수행을 하고 그리고 난 다음에는
And
이제
then
두 번째 이제 공연
comes
파트로
the second
연결이 되죠.
performance part.
도시락을 먹는 장면으로
So you can see the
이어져서
students
도시락을
eating the
먹으면서
lunchbox.
남자친구인 지은이와 보영이
And
싸우는
Jiun
모습을
and Boyoung, you can see them
보이게
fighting a
됩니다.
bit.
지은이가 이제 약간
They're best
놀리죠.
friends, but they
환경
fight because
파괴자다.
Jiun
너
says,
왜
you're
일회용품 부탁을
disrupting the
싸우니?
environment
라고
because
얘기를
you
하고 그 말에
brought
이제
disposable
지은이
goods.
보영이가 화가
And
나서
Boyoung
이제
becomes very upset.
퇴장을 하죠. 그렇게 하고 이제 자연스럽게
And she
이제
leaves the
막간을 하고
stage.
있으면서
And then you
보영이의
hear
집으로 이제
music, and
넘어가게 돼요.
once again, the
보영이는 이제
scene
화가
is
나서
changed to
씩씩거리고
Boyoung's
이제 집에
house.
돌아옵니다.
Boyoung
그래서
returns
엄마한테
home
이제
very
보영이를
upset
이야기를
and tells her
하는데
mother what
이제 엄마는
happened.
이제 행동하는
Boyoung's
게
mother,
좀 이제 낯설죠. 반응이 별로 없이
well,
로봇처럼
she acts like a
신용카드가 가득
robot.
들어있는 이
What she does
접시를
is she brings
내밀면서
out a
먹어라라고
plate
이제
filled
얘기하죠.
with credit
네가 늘
cards.
먹던
Very
거잖아,
strange. She
먹어라라고
says
이야기를
that
해요.
this is
이
what you
장면이
normally
들어갔던
eat.
이유는 저희가
So
프로그램을 개발하는
finish and eat
단계에서
up.
기사를 저희가 발견을 해서
And
그
then
씬이 들어가게 되는데요.
an article
그
is
우리가
shown.
버린 플라스틱 쓰레기가
The
미세하게 분해가
plastic
돼서 골고루
waste
돌아서 그것이 이제
actually
우리가 이제
leaves
섭취를 하게 되는데
a mark on the
일주일에
environment, and
신용카드
actually we
신용카드 한
absorb
장
them once
정도의
again. The
그
humans
플라스틱을
absorb
먹게
them.
된다고 해요.
And the
그래서 이제
amount
그
is
기사를
like
보고
the
저희가
amount of a
이런
credit
장면을
card.
넣는
So
게
it's
어떨까
like
해서 이제 넣게 됩니다.
the
그런데
microplastic
이
that we
상황 엄마를
absorb
피해서
is,
이제 보영이는
I
도망을
think the
가죠.
amount
그러면서
is
자기가
like the
아끼는
amount of one credit
거북이
card. That's why
거북이를
the mother
들고
has
이제
said that.
포장을 하게 돼요.
And then the
이거는
next
이제
scene,
다른
you
학교에서의
see a
그
pet
이
turtle.
모습인데요.
This
공연
photo
모습인데 그냥 이렇게
is
교실에서
a photo of
제가
the
이제 공연을
performance that was
진행하는 게
conducted at a
있습니다.
different elementary school,
분명히
the
이제
previous school that
애완거북이를
I showed
들고
you.
이제 퇴장을 했는데
And
그랬는데
there was a
이제
pet
그
turtle that
애완거북이가
was shown,
없어졌어요. 그래서 당황하고
but
있는
the pet turtle
보영이한테
disappears.
그
It's
위에
actually
커다란
Boyoung's pet turtle.
대형 이제 거북이가 등장을 하죠.
And then
거북이가
a large,
이제
gigantic
에코가
turtle
섞여 있는
comes on
어떤 배기실한
stage,
음악과 함께
and then
그래서
spooky
네가 준
music is
것 때문에
turned
내가 너무
on,
아프다라고
and the
얘기하면서
turtle
검은색
says
천과
in
함께 이
narration,
플라스틱 쓰레기들을
because of what
다
you gave
토해내요.
me,
뼈,
I
보영이가.
had to eat
그래서
all
이제
this waste.
그것이
And the
이제
turtle
검은
spits out
바다로
black
다시 이제 변화를
plastic.
통해서 그
And then
검은
you see
바다가
black
이제 보영이를
ocean
덮고 이제
water,
끝나죠.
which
그럼 이제 보영이는
actually
이제 악몽에서
swallows up
깨어났다는 설정으로
Boyoung.
깨어나서
And
안돼라고
Boyoung
소리를
wakes up
지면서
from this nightmare.
깨어나고 이제 날
That's the
아침이구나.
next scene. And when
이렇게
she
이제
wakes up,
연결이
it's the
되는 게
morning
그 공연
of the
파트
field
2로 이제
trip.
연결이
So
되고요.
that is part
그
2 of
이후에
the
깨어나고 난
performance.
다음에는
So Boyoung
자연스럽게
wakes
이제
up,
빨리 이제 진행을 하도록
and
하겠습니다.
I think I have
자연스럽게
to
이제
speed up.
활동으로
So after
넘어가요. 그래서 이제
that, the
엄마를
second activity
만나서
part
이야기를
takes
조금
place.
나눠보고 엄마가
The mom
어떻게
engages
엄마의
in a
생각을 바꿀 수
dialogue
있도록
with
이야기를
Boyoung, and
나눠보고
Boyoung
그리고
tries to
이제 직접
persuade
이제
her
역할을
mom
바꿔본다거나 그리고 이제
to change her
소위
mind about
나누고
using disposable
그러면서
goods.
생각을
And
나누고
then the
공연
students can
내에
engage in a
이런
discussion
그
after
이제
that.
우리가 할 수 있는 일들
And they
우리가
talk
지금
about
현재
what,
상황에서
as
환경
students, they can
변화를
do in their
환경 세기
positions.
이슈를
How
위해서
can
할
they
수 있는
help the
것들을 이제
environment?
사업서를
And then they
쓰는
go on
그런
to
모습을
write a
보도록
pledge
하겠습니다라고
that they
사업서를 쓰는
will
걸로 이제
contribute to
끝을
protecting
맺었는데요.
the environment.
대략적으로 보시면 대부분 이제
So as you can
긍정적인
see,
피드백들이 많이
most of the
있었어요. 그래서
feedback
이제
that we
조금
received were
자세히 보시면 될
positive.
것 같고 그 프로그램을 진행하면서 드라마와 시어터가 가지고 있는 힘을
I
느끼게
was
된다면
able
힘은 도대체
to,
어디서 온
well, one of
것이냐에
the
대해서
responses
이제
that I
이야기를
saw was that they were
해보자면
able
이제
to
즐거움이 있는 것
experience
같고요. 그리고 이제
the
이
benefits of
드라마
drama and
시어터
theater in
자체가
school.
갖고 있는 교육적인
And
그
one of the
메시지를
power
담아낼 수 있는
or
그런
the
고유한
impact
매체적인
and
특성과
benefits of
관련해서
utilizing
이야기를
drama and theater is,
나눌
first
수
of all, that it's
말씀을
very
드릴 수가 있을 것
enjoyable
같고
and
그리고 이제
meaningful.
행하면서 배울 수 있는 거 learning by doing
And
그리고
children
이제
can learn by
예술적인 그런
doing. There's
경험들을
also the
함께 할 수 있다는
aesthetic
것이
experience,
장점으로
and
꼽을 수
that
있고
drama is
예술과
used
교육을 정말 잘 아는
to
전문가가
as an
여러분들
art
적절히
format, but
잘 이제
also
수업을
it
수행할 수
delivers
있다라는
educational message to
생각을
the students.
하게 되는 것 같습니다. 온라인으로 진행했을 때는
Now, when we
어떤가와
conduct this
관련하여서
program
이제
online,
사이버 불링과 관련된
well, like I
거를
said, we've
진행을 해볼 건데
tried the
온라인으로.
cyberbullying
그래서
related
이제
program
저희
online.
학교에서 했었던 기사가 여기 나기도
And
해서 한번 보여드리고요.
this
이건
is actually an
장면이에요. 이제
article
공연 장면 같은
about
경우는 미리 이제 녹화를
the
떠놓고 저희는
program
이제
that we
액터 티처들이
conducted.
이렇게 모여서
The
온라인으로
actor
같이
teachers,
상호작용하면서
well,
이제
they
진행을
had
했는데요.
interacted
항상 모든 게
through
긍정적인
an online
반응으로 오지는
channel.
않았던 것
Not all
같아요.
of the
물론
feedback that we
기술적인 부분에
received
대한
were
것도 있었던 것
positive because there
같고,
were some
그리고 이제
technical
내가
difficulties and we
조금
received feedback about
부끄러웠다.
that.
그래서 조금
There were
더
some
이제
people who said,
질문을 하고
I felt
싶은데
a little bit
부끄러웠다라고
shy
하는 그런
to
코멘트도 얻을 수
participate
있었습니다. 그래서
online
이제 제가
in this
여러분께 만약에
program.
온라인으로 진행을 해보고 싶다라고
So
TI 프로그램을
if
그렇게
someone is
진행해보고
interested in
싶다라고 하시는
carrying out a
분들에게
TIE
드릴 수
program
있는
online,
말은
one
충분하게
recommendation or
스포츠계
advice I
요구를
can
이제 너무
give is
많이 이제
that
수용을 하다 보니 저희가 또
sometimes you want
아이스
to
브레이킹 타임을
accommodate
충분히 가질 수 없었거든요. 그래서 이제 그런
too
부분을
much of the
충분히
requests
가지면서 조금
of
더 만났을
the
때보다 조금 더
schools, and
단계적으로
so sometimes you
천천히
don't have
그
enough
단계를
time
밟아가는
for
게 좋을
ice
것
breaking.
같고,
But I
그
believe that
학생
you really need
관객들과
enough
함께 있는 공적
sufficient
자원을
time for ice
적극적으로
breaking when you're doing this online
활용하여서 도움을
especially, and
얻어라라고
also you need as much
말씀드리고
support as
싶습니다.
you
이
can.
부분은 더 이제 나중에 차후에 말씀드릴 수 있을 것
And I think
같고요.
I can talk about
과연
this later
이
more in
사회 안에서
detail,
만들 수
but
있는 이제 마무리하겠습니다.
so this is
사회
the last
우리
part
그
of my
사회 안에서
presentation.
아트
That
에듀케이션이 할 수 있는 그
what is the
역할은
role of art
무엇인가와는 대해서는
education
이제
within our
논의차에
society?
좀
This
더
is something
계속
that perhaps we can talk
말씀 나눌 수
about more in
있었으면
detail
좋겠습니다.
during the panel
감사합니다.
discussion. Thank you for your attention.
네, 김수현 교수님
Yes, thank you very much,
감사합니다.
Professor
그
Soo-yeon
방금
Kim.
아이스브레이킹 시간
She talked
말씀하셔서
about
저희도
ice
아이스브레이킹을
breaking
할 시간이
time.
없이 막 지금
And
온라인
unfortunately, we do
세션이
not
진행이
have time for ice
되어가지고요.
breaking here, although
막
we're doing an
숨가쁘게
online
지금
session
발제를
because
막 토로하고
we
있는
don't have
중인데요.
enough
드디어
times.
이제 이보람
But now we
교수님의
are
발제를
at
들으면
the
저희도
last time for the
남은
last
시간 동안
presentation.
아이스브레이킹을 열심히 하면서
And
토론을 해볼 수 있을 것
during the panel
같습니다.
discussion, perhaps we can
마지막
break the ice.
발표자는
The last
사우스
presenter
오스트레일리아
is from the
대학교에 계신
University of
이보람
South
교수님이시고요.
Australia, Professor
이보람
Boram.
교수님은
Professor
금융학,
Boram
기술경영 이런 걸 전공하셨는데
has
이런
majored
굉장히
in business
융합적인 연구를
management
통해서
and art
현재는
management, and
No
currently
String Attached 장애극단이라는
she
극단의
is working with
활동이
a group
어떤
called
사회적
No Strings
영향력을
Attached, and
만들어낼
her
수
research
있는가, 또
covers the social impact of this group, and in this
이 극단이
pandemic
하는
era,
활동을 통해서 우리가
she is looking
생각해 볼 수 있는
into
것들은
what
무엇인가에
we
대한
can
아주
see
새로운
from the
연구를
activities
저희에게
of this group.
공유해 주실 수
And so she will be
있다고
sharing a very
한번
recent research.
찾아보겠습니다. 네, 이보람 교수님.
Professor Lee,
네, 안녕하세요. 화면 잘
good afternoon.
보이시나요?
Can you
네.
see my PowerPoint slides?
네. 안녕하세요. 저는
Good
남부에
afternoon.
있는 이보람이라고 합니다.
I am Boram Lee of the University of South Australia. During the last 2 years, we conducted a project called Connect to Abilities. We have been joined by professors from Korea and Australia, and so Connect to Abilities is a disability arts advocacy platform, and what we do as academics is to connect disability art groups from both countries so that we could have a positive impact on each other. And we also wish to have a new view of this very new area of disability art. So how can we learn about this area together and advocate this area together? And starting the Connect to Abilities program, we started to think about what disability is. According to the social model of disability, disability is the barriers society imposes on us, and when there are changes in the environment, then persons with disabilities can live in an environment where they can become a part of society regardless of disability. So we are now defining disability according to the social model. And we also took a look at the cultural right. All people have the right to participate and enjoy culture and art. In the case of Australia, 25% of the people have a disability. And so we wanted to take a look at how they can also enjoy art and culture. And of the 25% who have disabilities, we have seen that only 9% are professional artists. And there is also a stratification of such artists with disabilities. And how can people with disabilities have professional training as artists, and how can they have a career as an artist, and how can they be recognized for their art? How can we create an environment that enables this? That is in the limelight in Australia. On the average, artists with disabilities have a much lower annual income compared to artists without disabilities. And so we need to make an effort to solve this inequality. Connect to Abilities focuses on how we can learn from one another, how we can impact one another in positive ways, and also on how we can continue sustainable projects. We have had a total of 3 matching projects, and No Strings Attached of Australia and a group in Cheongju of Korea were matched together. In Adelaide, No Strings Attached was established in 1994, and as you can see on the screen, this has the form of community art. All people can participate in their workshops, and some outstanding performers are given opportunities to perform on larger stages. And so it becomes a platform for them to grow as independent and professional artists. In Korea, No Strings Attached was invited to Korea in December of 2019, and they were invited as a foreign performance showcase hosted by the Korea Disability Arts and Culture Center. And they were matched with a Korean group called 움직임. Yoon Bo-kyung actually created Korea's first art social corporation in Korea, and she provided social services for people with disabilities so that art and culture education could be provided to all. Ever since 2010, she has worked with various festivals for people with disabilities. Our goal this time around was to match these 2 groups so that they can collaborate and also enable the participants to lead the workshops that we conduct. Actually, when we conduct workshops, the role of the staff without disabilities is very important because they are the ones who are knowledgeable about the participants as well as the environment that the participants need. So when we draw the big picture, the staff conducted most of the work, and the participants were provided with the relevant information. That is the usual way. But this time around, it was different, of course, also because of COVID-19. But we actually had 3 locations of Adelaide, Seoul, and Cheongju. In the preparation process, we have had a lot of meetings and dialogue. Before the workshop, we have had 2 formal meetings. And during the formal meetings, we talked about the format of the workshops and the agenda for the workshops.
비대면으로 하기 때문에
And because this is online, we also had to think about cameras as well as what we need to prepare for these online platforms.
하지만 저희가 여러 가지 조건에 의해서 워크숍을 딱
Because of various limitations, we only were able to host 3 workshops. It was across 3 Saturday afternoons. In Korea, we have had 6 participants and 6 staff members participated. From Australia, we had 4 participants and 4 staff members.
거기에 이제 또 촬영하시는 분들이
We also had
하셨고요.
filmmakers participate. Well, I'm not a very good interpreter, but I participated as an interpreter, and we also had 3 observers.
원칙이 있었어요.
We also had some principles that we followed. Because this is collaborative work,
참여해서
we wanted to make sure that we all commit to collaborative co-designing of the contents. And we also decided to archive everything we do. All of the pre-meetings were recorded and minutes were documented. We also have the focus of developing participants' skills, and that was a very important point for us. It was not about the participants following the lead of the staff, but we wanted to make sure that the participants were leading the workshop. The first workshop was led by No Strings Attached. They wanted to focus on movement. And so we have screens before us, and we are located in different countries, but we wanted to know how we can make the participants feel connected. And we also wanted to facilitate understanding of each other. The second workshop was led by Culture Maru, and they actually taught some traditional movements, such as holding hands and going in circles, using various tempos and variations, so that we can introduce the Korean culture to the Australian participants. The third workshop was based on the first 2 workshops, and we had opportunities to share memories of the individual participants. And these memories were expressed linguistically or through movements. And we tried to mimic each other, and we tried to provide all of the participants with independent opportunities to express themselves. So this is from the first workshop. As you can see, we have a screen or a monitor, and we also have filmmakers. And so in 3 different locations, we have had 3 different settings. And during the first workshop, this was when we started to get to know each other. And it was very enjoyable. All of the participants enjoyed meeting new friends. They felt like they were going back into their childhood. They had great fun. And they danced and they ran and they joked around. And so it was very fun for all of the participants. The workshop lasted for about 90 minutes. And because these participants had disabilities, we thought that we could not have longer workshops, but 90 minutes turned out to be too short because everyone was very excited to participate. The second workshop was based on 강강술래 and other traditional movements. Actually, these movements are quite complicated, and we could see that everyone learned these movements perfectly. We were very surprised to see this, and so it was quite enjoyable the second time around as well. The third workshop was about storytelling. The participants shared items with memories, and they were able to learn about each other and they were able to express themselves in words and movements.
그래서 어떻게 하면은 정말 눈에 보이지 않는
So,
20번째
how can we break through the fifth wall that is invisible? How can we actually have inclusive art? How can we have open theaters and open stages? How can we make sure that we can experience art together? And it was a great opportunity to entertain while empowering and also to celebrate all of the abilities that we have. I don't know how much time I have left, but I would like to show you this video from the workshop.
Can everyone try this?
제가 오늘 이제 춤 동작이 되게
The
멋졌다는
dance
말은 저도 되게
movement
이제
that I had
감동했습니다.
performed was complimented and I was very impressed. I enjoyed following the movements of our Australian friends. It was great fun and I was very happy. Thank you.
네, 정말 그 저희 참여자들
Our participants, you can see that they were shining during the workshop.
이 넘치는 끼와 재능을
So they are very talented, and so we need to find opportunities for them to safely express themselves in a warm environment.
여기서 마치도록 하겠습니다.
Thank you very much.
감사합니다.
Thank you for your attention.
네, 감사합니다. 이보란 교수님.
Thank you very much, Professor Lee. Thank you for keeping within your time limit. And that actually leaves us some time for discussion.
그 준비해 오시고 또
Now, our
말씀하시려던
presenters,
것보다 훨씬
I know that they were not given ample time to introduce all that they've prepared. But we do have the panel discussion, which you can utilize to introduce a bit more of what you've been up to. Today, we've heard 5 presentations, and we can see that in this time of crisis, we are thinking about what art can do, what is the role of the arts, and also arts education, and also how we can help to connect the people. I think that a lot of the activities were aimed at that. Now, in the past, when we thought about artists, we thought about individuals that worked in their individual artistic activities. But now, we are utilizing these artistic activities to try to understand this age of crisis, and they're moving into the societies. And the importance of the artists have grown because now art is used as a way to resolve our issues. We're going into the societies. And so now, although we do not have a lot of time left, nevertheless, because all of the presenters, they are representing different organizations, and the people that they work with are different, and the role of the organizations are different.
각자의 어떤
I
그런
think it would be
역사를
meaningful
가지고 계신 그래서 거기서
for
마주치는 많은
our
분들을
presenters,
만나면서
because they have met with so many different
이렇게
people,
사회와 연결하는 어떤 예술 활동, 이런 사회
to talk about
의기
their
같은 것을 우리가
experiences,
드러내는 예술 활동이나 예술 교육이
how
잘
the
이루어지려면
arts education and the arts
무엇이 지금
activities
이렇게
that they're
선생님이
engaged
발표하셨던
with,
내용들은 되게 잘 되는 것만
what
사실은
they
말씀해
think
주셨거든요. 그래서 뭔가 조금
is
이런 게 조금
needed to
부족하거나 아니면
make
좀
their
더 잘
activities
되려면
more
이런 게
effective.
필요할
They
것
have talked about their
같은데
work
이런
and
것이
what
더
they've
잘
been
되기
doing, but
위해서는
if there's
이런 측면이
something they
조금 더
think is
강화됐으면
needed to
좋겠다라는
further
생각 드신 게
strengthen
있으면
their
이게
activities, to
뭐
make them
어떤
more
기획의 측면이든지
impactful, that
아니면
would be
조직의
very helpful.
측면이든지
It
아니면
could be
또
fortifying the
외부와의
planning part or
연대와
the
그런 연대가
organization, or
드러나는
perhaps more
상황이든지
collaborative
조금
ties
말씀을
with outside
해주시면
organizations. So
어떤
if
것들이
you
우리가
have
좀 더
any
열심히
thoughts
노력해
about
가야 되는
how you
부분일지
can
알 수 있을
more
것
better
같아요.
improve your work,
어떨까요? 저는 아까 처음에
please
이제
share your
정명석
2 cents.
정
Now we
팀장님
started off with
말씀하실
Mr.
때
Jung,
언뜻
and
떠오르는 게 이제 저희
I was
학교의
hearing
이제
him
그런
talk, and I thought about
문제들이었거든요.
some
저희가
of the challenges we have
항상 뭔가 이렇게
at my school.
환경
So
생태 막
whenever we
이렇게
think about
그런
what we can do
활동해야
regarding the
돼라고 하면서
environment
사실은
or
예산을 쥐꼬리만
the
해서
ecosystem,
우리
the problem
학생들에게
is
사실은 더
the limited
유해한 뉴스를
budget.
가지고 항상 뭔가
And
무대 제작을 하고
so
있고 그걸
because
또
of the
체계하고
budget,
있고
we have
이런
to use
활동들이 왜 우리가
materials,
교육할 때
cheap
제대로 하지
materials.
못하고
That's
있는
not good
거지?
for the
도대체
environment.
교육기관에서 이걸 배워나가지
I'm
못하면
working at an
학생들이
education
어디에 가서 이걸 하라는
institute
거지? 그런
that
생각이
teaches
들었거든요.
students, but if we
학자가
cannot
계시는
really
입장에서
show the
이런 조금
students
더 뭔가 부족한데 이걸
how we
어떻게
can
하면
help
좀
the
잘할 수 있을지
environment,
한번
how
말씀해
will
주실
they
수
learn?
있을까요?
So, what are your views about
사실 이
further
부분은
improving your
선생님 잘
activities?
아시다시피
As you're well
기존의
aware,
관습을 깨야 하는
we need to
상황이잖아요.
break
기존에 하던 것들이 굉장히
our
화려하고
practices.
그것이 결국
Of
뭐 환경을
course, those
파괴하는 상황이라
practices are what
하더라도
we are
그
very
부분을
used
제대로
to,
인지하지 못한 채
and
습관적으로 하게
sometimes
되는
they
상황이
leave
문제인 것
large carbon
같은데
footprints, but we
그런
would
일단
just
인식들을 깰 수
use those
있는
practices because they
좀
are
고민에
what we are
좀
used
그런
to.
시간들이
And so I think we need
교육의
to think
시간들이
about
좀 필요할
how
것
to
같고요.
break those
아까
practices.
말씀하셨다시피 예산적인 부분도 굉장히
As I
중요할
mentioned
것
before,
같지만
budget is an
그보다
important
더
issue, of
어떻게
course,
보면 필요한
but
거는
what we need above
늘상
that
관습적으로 했던
is
행동들에 대해서 한
to
번씩 멈추고
rethink what
생각해
we
봐야 하는
have been doing
태도
thus
들인 것
far.
같아요.
So that
사실
attitude of
극장이란
rethinking what
공간이
we
너무
have
잘
done thus
아시겠지만
far.
전통적으로는 조명의
Theaters,
예열도 굉장히
well,
많은 시간들이
traditionally,
필요한데
they need a lot of
그런
time to
부분들도
warm up the
시간을 어떻게
lighting.
보면 좀
But
줄이면서
we
기존에
could
좋아진 조명
reduce that
장비들의
time
성능을 최대한
and we
활용할 수
can utilize
있을까라는
new
부분들도
technologies for
전혀 예산이
lighting.
들지 않고
And that
각자의
would not
고민과
take
이제
additional
매뉴얼
budget,
정돈만으로도 충분히 할 수
but
있는
it's something that we can
환경적인
do
활동이라고
by
생각하고요.
reconsidering.
전 그런 좀
And
그
so
행동들이
I believe
작게나마 좀
that
필요하지
such
않을까. 이런
action
태도의
is
변화가
needed.
좀 시급하지
So we
않을까라고
need a
생각합니다.
shift in attitude, first of all.
네.
Thank you.
또 저희 뭐 순서대로 말을 할지
Maybe
아니면
we
말씀하시고
can
싶은
go
선생님 먼저
in the order that we
말씀하실지
spoke, or we
쭉
can
한번
speak up as
말씀해 보시면
we
어떨까요?
need to. I don't think there's any particular order that we should go in.
그 사회적 예술교육과 아까 사회적 역할에
Well, we
대해서
talked about the social
시간이
role
모자라서
of
저기 김 교수님께서 김수영 교수님께서 좀
education,
남겨놓고
and
말씀을
so
하셨는데
Professor Kim was
그런
not able to
부분들이
finish this
사실은
aspect.
예술 교육이
So perhaps you
그
can add
이런 사회적
on.
위기를 저희가
How can
인지하도록 하는 데
arts
굉장히
education
중요한
help us
기능을
better
하고 있잖아요.
understand
그런
the
차원에서
crisis
어떤
situation?
남은 그
Do
이야기를
you
하고
have
싶으신지
anything
또 좀
further that you
지금
would like to talk
시간을 기회를
about?
하시면
I will
좋겠습니다.
give you more time
네.
to explain.
그 사실은 우리가 알고 있을
Well, in fact,
거예요.
I think
지금
everyone
정명석
knows.
선생님께서
Now, Mr.
말씀하셨듯이
Chung, as he
조금만 매뉴얼을
mentioned,
살펴보고
if we look at our
조금만
manual a
관심을
little bit and
기울이면
take
어떤
more
방식으로
interest, just a
우리가
little bit more,
행할 수
then
있을까 그런
I think
것들을
we will
알고 있는데
see what
세상에서
we
가장
can do more.
먼 여행이 그렇다고
But
합니다.
they
머리로
say that the
들어오는 것보다
furthest
머리에서부터
journey
가슴으로
is the
이루는
journey
것
from
그리고
the heart,
가슴으로부터 행위로
excuse me, the
나오는
mind
것이
to the
어렵다고 해요.
heart.
그래서 저는
But the
항상
more difficult
예술
journey is
교육이
from the heart
가질 수 있는
to your
무게는
hands and
그
feet. In other words,
행위에서 가슴으로, 가슴에서
showing
머리로
action.
가자라고 주장하고
So
있는
I think
사람이고요.
that, well, I
그렇게
always
갈
say
수
that we have to
있는
move from
힘은
the heart to the
무엇이냐?
mind. You have
노리성에
to
있다고 생각합니다.
first feel.
저는
And I think that in order to
놀이에
do that,
몰두하고
we
있는
have to think
아이들의
about
모습
play.
그리고
If you
우리
look at children
인간들이
playing,
본래적으로
And if you think about the genuine characteristics of human beings, we tend to love and we engage in play. We don't do it because we're compensated, but we play. We engage in play because we enjoy it. And then we want to share what we've learned through play. So having said that, I think that there are some strengths that we can utilize, the strength of arts education. That's my basic position. And I think that the objective of pursuing art is different by all artists. Artists have different objectives. And I think that arts education's objective may be different, but I think that there is this genuine power that can be generated through arts education, and we can utilize the power of arts education to tackle the challenges of our society. There is not a single answer. There's no right or wrong here, but I think that we can do what we should take what we can and try to implement that in our societies. Yes, thank you very much.
The example presented by Professor Boram Lee covered people with disabilities who are working to be professional artists. But we can also think about educational effect. For example, we tend to think of better grades or better attitudes when we take a look at arts education. But if we could change that paradigm and think about the effect of arts education on people with disabilities, in particular in the form of play, what would be some impressive impacts of arts education? Well, I believe that we are all social beings, and so social skills will be developed through arts education, making friends, self-expression, and listening to others. All of these skills are social skills that are needed. As we conducted our 3 workshops, what was notable was that when participants were given an opportunity, they fully enjoyed that moment. And when they got to know each other, they could feel the joy of getting to know someone. Of course, it would boost self-esteem, self-confidence, and all of the other traditional effects. But I think the biggest effect was learning to make friends. Well, related to arts education, it's not about teaching a single function. It's not just about refining a skill. It is about just artistic achievements. As you have mentioned, participants with disabilities, they were able to feel as if they are a part of a community or a society, and that indeed was very important. In more detail, as Professor Kim has mentioned, when we think about something and we express it with our body, that connection is difficult, and that connection can be made through arts education. In the Seongbuk Museum of Art, you started with something very detailed and you have created something from that. And so I think you have worked very hard to achieve this. In this pandemic era, the Seongbuk Museum of Art, you did not create something out of the blue. You had worked on these issues for a very long time. So it was in the pipeline for a very long time. And so in this environment of the pandemic, the artists, did they play a new role that we did not envision in the past? Or are there potential roles that you have seen that can be played by artists? Well, because you worked very close with the artists, I think you probably have more views. We have seen that there are many talented and passionate artists, and they lack the platform to express themselves. And so that is surprising all the time. We are always surprised at how many talented artists there are. But when our projects are over, I believe that continuing that work after the project is always very important. The Art Sunanro project is a mid to long-term project. That is why it's more meaningful. Well, creating something from nothing is always very difficult. And 3 years is not enough to do this. Well, we actually had a 3-year project with a 1-year preparation period. And I think as things start to blossom, we would probably finish our project. And so I always think about how we should have a plan for after the project. Already 5 years ago in Sangbuk, we started our governance experiments, and we are starting this project in the second area of Sangbuk. And so we already had in place the mechanism for communication and governance, and so we have high hopes for future achievements. Before we close, I think we should go to curator Lee Eun-soo, because you are here at the venue.
Now, there are the discourse that takes place at the museum, but as speculators, is there a channel for the speculators to take part in this discourse that takes place at the art museums? Well, because we're experiencing this pandemic, the museum is trying to communicate more with the public through exhibitions, through conferences, through workshops, and also we've been trying to recycle many different resources. And through this opportunity to give a presentation here, I did some research and I found that overseas, this kind of discourse has taken place for a long time. And the power of arts has been utilized in the process to promote communication. I was surprised to see that these attempts have been widely utilized overseas for a long time. In Korea, well, we're just among the few that's trying to do this. Right now, we're faced with the climate crisis, and we're trying to implement the carbon neutral agenda into our programs. And we are working with the practitioners to ensure that this agenda is more widely reflected into our projects and activities. So we want to develop more contents to deal with the imminent social issues that we experience today. Thank you. So I can see you, Ms. Lee, on the screen, and I was thinking it would have been great if all of us were there at the venue of the symposium, because it's really a beautiful background that we see outside of the window. Thank you very much for all of the experiences that you have shared, the artists and the art education, connecting with society. I think that today we were able to look into the possibility and the potential. So with this, I would like to wrap up our session. Thank you very much.